What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy, back with Hometown Commander, and we are back for another opening, the best part of set release, and that is opening new product. And today we are back for a full set booster box of Phyrexia. All will be one. And this is a set that I'm very excited for. I hope you guys have things you're excited for out of this set. Just want to show you guys the box here. Glory to Phyrexia. And then I love it, they're still putting the old school Magic side on one of the sides of the box, just like they started doing with Dominaria United. Let's open this set booster box up. 36 packs. I feel like I might be wrong on that. I feel like I'm always wrong when it comes to that, but pretty Phyrexia arena art there, and some information about Elishnorn in there. Set boosters are, to be honest, one of my favorite things to open. 30 set boosters, I'm sorry, not 36, because you have the option every set booster at more than one rare, and I feel like that ends up adding up over the course of 30 set boosters. You probably have a good chance of getting a couple packs that have more than one rare. So let's do it. Every pack, if this is your first time seeing set boosters, every pack comes with an art card, a land, uncommons and uncommons, and a litany of other cards, as well as a chance at multiple rares, which I think is the reason why you should buy set boosters, because again, you have the chance of getting multiple rares, and in a game where rares are sometimes the most important cards, that's what you want. Interesting art card in the back. That was not what I was waiting. That was not what I was expecting. Attracts the Skitterfang of our token, which is Phyrexian Goblin. Oh, it looks like our pack's backwards. That's right. Okay, so we got some Japanese printed set boosters. I wasn't prepared for that, but we have our full art mountain. So we'll just go this way. I wasn't expecting that. I know some of the collector boosters were coming out that way, but that's okay. We'll just go the other way, and now we know it for the rest of the box. We have a section of Evangelist. Love the new lands. I think they're all going to be really great for most people. People are going to want to upgrade their lands that they've had in previous decks to be these, and I'm excited to see them on the table now. Mirix, and then Leonin Lightbringer. So Mirix is a land that I'm kind of interested in. It's something that I've already started playing around with a little bit in my Vishkraz list. You can see that video up on the channel as far as the new decks that I'm working on. But yeah, you know, if it comes in this turn, you get to add a mana of any color, but otherwise it just taps for 1, and then it can make a might token for 3 mana, which seems like a kind of interesting concept, especially in a set where you know, these might tokens and toxic is really important. I'm intrigued to see kind of how that lands. So Mirix seems interesting. I've yet to play with it so far, but again, I like the look of it. I think it's an interesting land. I'm not sure if these sphere lands are going to take off at all, if there's going to be any new support for spheres coming, if they're going to kind of give us any more support than just, I believe there's a monument in the set that cares about spheres. I'm intrigued to see if we get any more support for it. There we go. We have Nahiri as our art card. There we go. Our basic forest. I have to say, I do like the look of the Phyrexian language ones a little better than the panorama ones, but I feel like, to me, the panorama ones are like those classic full art lands, so it's easier for me to like the look of these then palette-wise. The only thing I do like about these is they move the logo from the center of the land here down to the bottom left, and I feel like it just allows for more room on the land for you to see the art, which, let's be honest, is the reason we want the full art lands, right? We want the art, and so I really like that. Of course, with the Phyrexian language ones, you don't need the logo on the card because it's right in the middle. You can see it. It's prominent in the art, so you know which land someone played. Veil of Assimilation. Love the art on that. It reminds me a lot of some of the metal albums I've seen in the past. Ambulatory Edifice. We get a Kethic, Crucible Goliath, a card that seems interesting to me. I don't know that it's necessarily, even necessarily figured out where to use it. And we have a Magic Game. Cyber Simulacrum. This one's interesting. My wife and I have actually done this before, and it's kind of interesting to use the Google image search to have the other person guess the cards. Of course, I was guessing the cards, and my wife was looking at the images because she is not that well versed in the Magic world. But it was definitely tough. There was some stuff that was definitely pretty interesting. All right, we got Might Overseer, another card that I'm kind of excited to try out. We have a mountain, panorama mountain there. As far as uncommons and commons go, are there any that you guys are excited to play? I'm excited for Ossification, one of the new uncommons, kind of like a new, it's kind of a new, oh my gosh, I'm losing my words. It's kind of like a new Oblivion Ring of Swords, but it's a little bit cheaper. I'm excited to try out Slaughter Singer there, giving a buff to all your creatures with Toxic. As well as Cankerbloom seems interesting. I'm kind of excited to see what this card does, whether it be on Brawl or anywhere else. And there's Miglaw's Maze Crusher, a card I'm going to try to brew around. That video will be going up on the channel pretty soon. I'm excited to see if I can make oil counters work the way I want to. We have a Quicksilver Fisher, just a standard foil. And then our Rebel token. I don't believe the Step and Complete foils come in set boosters, so you can't get them here, and maybe they're only exclusive to the collector boosters. But I do really enjoy showcase arts like that Quicksilver Fisher. A lot of people have had mixed feelings on the showcase arts in the past. I have to say I really like them. I think they're all pretty cool. And so I'm happy to see them, again, iterate and try more things. There we have Koth. We have a Swamp for that now. The Hunter Maze, our Sphere lands. Again, I'm interested to see if the Sphere lands have any use, if they're a new land cycle that we're going to see some more support for, if they'll actually be able to get some play in Commander with the typing, or if it's just going to be a land cycle people use elsewhere. I'm kind of intrigued to see what comes out of that. Thrumming Bird. And we have Jace, the Perfected Mind, a mythic. I'm not sure how I feel about this Jace. I think there's going to be some things that come good with this Jace, but I just don't know that I love... I don't know that I love the way it's designed. I just don't know if it's going to have that much playability. And Seagate Oracle, our card from the list, from, it looks like Call Time Commander, which is kind of interesting. It's not that Jace is bad. I think Jace is a good card. The -X means if you pay the full 4 mana, you can mill someone for 15 cards, -5ing it immediately. Or if you wait a couple turns, you can mill an opponent out for more. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm just saying is that I'm just not sure how it's going to land in outside of 60-card formats in Commander. Glissa Sunslayer with a little logo there. We get a forest. Love the look of that forest. So anyway, do you guys have a favorite Planeswalker from the new set? I think mine is definitely Nissa. Nissa seems to have the most upside, especially for Commander when it comes to big green decks that already want those finishers anyway. To me, Nissa kind of seems like another Crater Hoof as a finisher for a deck. Kind of excited to see if Infested Flush Cutter does anything. It kind of seems overcosted as an equipment, but I'm intrigued to see if it gets any play in any decks. Blight Belly Rat looks kind of interesting there with all of those weird things. And then we have Slowbad Iron Goblin. Slowbad, of course, had a card in the past and gets a new one. Not quite sure how to feel about Slowbad. Like, I can see the play lines for Slowbad, but I don't know that it's my kind of deck. But I'm sure someone out there will be very, very happy to get Slowbad, to get a new card like that. There we are, the Fair Basilica, Elish Norn's Castle of Sorts, very pretty, and of course is on some of the arts you see for the set. And there we go, regular planes. The Dross Pits. So again, intrigued to see what these Sphere lands do. I'm not holding on to hope, but I would be kind of excited to see them do something other than just be a new land type that nobody uses. Another Mirror Convert. Of course, we got to see you get to see Urtet in the new set, a new Mirror Commander. And we see Red Sun's Twilight. Stripe to X target artifacts. If X is 5 or more for each artifact destroyed this way, create a token that's a copy of it. These tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. I think it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure what your goal is, but I mean, to be able to destroy up to 1 target artifact for 3 mana and get a copy of it, you know, nuke someone's Bolas's Citadel, nuke someone's Aetherflux Reservoir in Commander. In Standard, or you know, or brawl scenarios, you could get rid of somebody's key to the archives or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of applications for it. I'm just intrigued to see how it actually plays. You know, sometimes something looks good, but when you go actually play it in reality, sometimes it doesn't always actually live up to what you expect. I think the downside to it is you're just getting one target. 3 mana seems like a lot for one target when a braid and things like that exists, or Vandal Blast exists. But again, I think it's going to come down to what you're targeting and what kind of matchup you're in for that. We get a regular swamp, the Spider Swamp. Prosthetic Injector seems like an interesting card, +2/+0 and Toxic 1. I feel like it could come in handy for some decks that want to spread that Toxic out wide and have the option to attack with creatures or get things on some flyers. This is a card I'm kind of interesting, a Natural Restoration. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's kind of a regrowth in some senses, but only for permanents, but then you proliferate. Like, this could be a good card in those oil counter decks or in Toxic decks, because that proliferate is going to be something we can take advantage of, but also you get to just bring something back from the graveyard. Bladed Ambassador, and our rare is Norn's Wellspring. Norn's Wellspring is a kind of interesting card. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry one and then put an oil counter on it. Then you can remove oil counters from it to draw a card. This is just one of those cards I think that helps factor into this proliferate thing. You know, if we have other ways to proliferate, we can kind of proliferate oil counters onto the Wellspring and always be drawing a card. I'm sure it'll see some play in Commander. It's not really my favorite of the new oil counters cards, but it could definitely be interesting. Here we have Atmosphere Surgeon. Definitely got some of that Jin-Gitaxias vibe to it. And we have a foil forest. That's pretty cool. There's a chance to get a foil land of all of these set boosters. I think, to me, the reason I love opening and the reason I love commons and uncommons specifically is just, this is the art that I feel like most people don't see. All of it's so pretty. I think art is some of the best part of Magic cards. And I love looking at the commons and uncommons. I collect all of them, and I think they're a ton of fun just to look at and see what our artists have come up with that aren't on the fancy rares that everybody gets to see. This card seems kind of interesting. It could be a little bit of a budget finisher. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. Kind of interesting. Sinew Dancer. If you go wide enough, it could really be good. And the Filigree Silex, our latest of the Silex iterations that we've seen. Got to see both Urza and Karn's Silex, but Filigree Silex is back. And hey, we get Tyvar Kell from Kaldheim. This is our list card. Tyvar, of course, has a card in this set. We get to see his previous card, a Historic Brawl All-Star at the moment. Planeswalker. Elves you control have tap and add black mana, and lots of other abilities. Tyvar is probably one of my favorite new Planeswalkers we've seen in the last little bit. And to be 100% honest, Elves aren't really a tribe I've ever wanted to build, but Tyvar makes me want to build Elves. And I'm working on a Tyvar Historic Brawl deck at the moment. But I just think Tyvar is pretty cool. He's a cool character. Love the borderless art for this card. If you want to go take a look at that, probably one of my favorite borderless Planeswalker arts in a while, just in the way that the art's set up and how pretty it looks. But there we are, Phyrexian Arena with Vraska and Chase. And we get a foil Plains. Here we go. We see our Mirrodin mechanic. Whenever this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red or rebel creature token, then attach it to it. Seems like kind of interesting mechanic. Some of the rares are pretty cool as far as those go. I mean, they're a little bit more expensive than your normal equipment, but getting a token along with it is definitely relevant, especially for some decks. Anytime I see a black-red card like this, I'm always intrigued to see if it has anything to do with, artifacts. Like we've always had this Rakdos artifacts list in Standard or things like that. Charbelcher seems kind of interesting playing around with oil counters. Coffiny Scamp, another Cantor Bloom in that pretty showcase art. And there she is, Nissa, Ascended Animus, 3 green, Phyrexian green, for a 7 mana Planeswalker. Completed, so each of those Phyrexian manas can be paid with 2 life instead of a mana, but if you do, it comes with 2 less loyalty counters. And I think for most players, the -7 and the +1 are really what you're looking for. For the +1, create an XX green Phyrexia horror creature token where X is its loyalty. So if you tick it up immediately, you're getting an 8/8 token. And their -7 says until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each force you control and gain trample. So like I said, kind of a mini Crater Hoof, and then it's going to come down if you're in a mono green deck or have a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, or if you're playing a lot of that kind of style. You're going to come down, give all your creatures a lot of a buff and power, and then give them trample. The reason I do like it a little bit more than Crater Hoof is because I feel like most mono green decks that care about lands are going to be able to probably outproduce Crater Hoof in some sense. You know, Crater Hoof is X, where X is the number of creatures you control. What I like about Nissa is if you have a bunch of flyers, or if you have a bunch of other things, you can still take advantage of Nissa a little bit more than you could with Crater Hoof. Crater Hoof does have to enter the battlefield, whereas Nissa could be already out when you get to use its ability. So again, just a little bit different. I just think for most people, it adds a finisher in mono green, and more of the mono green colored decks, or you know, in your Tadiova decks or things like that, where you're still playing two colors, but you're still playing a lot of forests. I think it could be a finisher in Gitrog, although let's be honest, Gitrog uses a lot more of a combo finish than it does traditional finishers. But love the idea of I really like seeing Nissa, especially getting a good card. Nissa Shakes the World was probably my favorite Nissa up to that point. Now we have a commander card. This is one of the cards that is one of the cards that's exclusive to the set boosters. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and that's pretty cool. And there we go, one of the new cards that I'm sure some players are going to be very interested in, Conduit of Worlds. You may play lands from your graveyard, so almost a functional imprint of Crucible of Worlds, but then you get stapled onto it that you could choose a non-land permanent in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you can cast that card, and you can't cast additional spells this turn. You can do that only as a sorcery. I think that card's going to come into a lot of handy for a lot of land decks, whether that be your Windgrace style lists, whether that be, again, things like Gitrog. I just feel like that ends up helping you recur some of your really good stuff, as well as just play your lands out of your graveyard, which is what all those decks want to do anyway. Oh, don't know this art. Phyrexian Vindicator, the new quad white pip Phyrexian creature. I feel like I remember part of it. Now we get another forest, which is great. Prophetic Prism, the Troll. Minor misstep there. Shieldred's Edict. This is a card I'm really excited for, Shieldred's Edict, because I think this card is going to be kind of interesting. I'm interested to see how this card works, if it just ends up getting played as budget removal, or if it's actually really useful. So you choose one. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token, or each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. Like, this is going to be kind of interesting in 4-player formats. I'm excited to see if it lands at all, or if it just gets touted as just a card for, you know, one-on-one play, and if that's all it amounts to. Quicksilver Fisher, seeing a lot of those. Bone Picker Scourge. And our rarest, Urbresk's Forge. This is a card that I'm kind of interested in. It reminds me a lot of the Goblin Rabble Masters and the Legion War Bosses that make a token every turn and allows you to attack. This one, though, every turn you put a counter on it, and then you create an X1 token where X is the number of counters on it. So it kind of gets bigger and bigger over time. We have a Chrome Prowler, and then card from the list, Invade the City for more of the Spark. Amass X, where X is the number of instant sorceries in your graveyard. It's pretty cool. Amass is a mechanic I hope eventually we get to see again. It's a great way to kind of make tokens in an interesting way. We probably won't, because of course Amass was all about Bolus amassing his army, so we probably won't get to see that again. That's pretty cool. Mere Kinsmith, that looks pretty cool. But if not, a cool card there. Great payoff for spell singing decks where you're going to have a lot of spells in your graveyard to get a big token. Drowning Ichor. Card creature gets -4/-4 till the turn. Proliferate. Could be a good used card in those toxic or proliferate decks on Arena. Especially when everything's about just single target removal, you know, and a lot of things have 4 power in those formats. We see Tangle Weave Armor, a new living weapon. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 black germ creature token and attach to it. The creature gets +X/+X, where X is the greatest mana value among your commanders. This is kind of interesting because the bigger your commander is, right, the better this card is. So for example, you know, if you're playing like a Galta, you know, deck, or you're playing some of those big CMC commanders, I feel like this card could be pretty good. Otherwise, I'm not in love with it. I think it's okay, but again, it really just depends on how big your commander is. and what should work with. Oh, and we have a borderless Ichor card, Malcator Purity Overseer. This card has me really intrigued. So when it comes in, you get a 3/3 Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. In the beginning of your upstep, if you have 3 or more artifacts enter the battlefield this turn, you get another one. This is kind of interesting because there's a lot of cards that make mirror tokens and Thopter tokens when different things happen. So it would just depend on what Malcator would use to end the game, but I really think this is going to see a lot of good play in like the Urza decks that we just saw in Brothers War, or things like that, where you're already caring about the artifact tokens or the artifacts anyway. This card might see a slot in there. But if you do choose to brew it on your own, I think it has some interesting play lines. It's just going to be about deciding what you're going to finish with. And a Soulless Jailer. I'm kind of intrigued to see if this card sees an 8 commander play, but we have a new Hate Bear. It's the name for it. Permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. That shuts down a lot of different things. But I'm intrigued to see where this sees play, if this is a card straight for Modern or older formats, or what Soulless Jailer was intended to do. The problem with Soulless Jailer for Commander, just to be honest off the top of my head, is you already have things like Soul Guide Lantern and things like that. They're going to shut down the graveyard a little bit easier just off the back. And there's Kiramonix the Rat King, our bundle promo. In the for our card in that one, it looks like it's got the foil stamp. Ooh, pretty island there in the foil. So again, I'm intrigued to see what Soulless Jailer does, whether it actually goes somewhere or if it's just a new idea. There we go. There's Ossification, the card I was talking about earlier. One of my ones I'm excited to use. Enchant basic lands you control, and then exile target creature or planeswalker opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. Very excited to try this out on my Sithis list and things like that, especially on Brawl, where you can kind of go after opponents' things. That 1-for-1 exile removal is pretty good because a lot of colors don't have a way to get rid of enchantments, and so you're going to kind of be able to lock those cards out. Infectious Bite looks kind of interesting for his Punisher, and there we are. Geth, Thane of Contracts. Geth gets card, and it's for 1 black. You can basically reanimate something from the graveyard, but if it leaves the battlefield, it gets exiled. You can only do it as a sorcery. Geth seems kind of interesting. I don't know about it as a commander personally, although I think it's a way just to reanimate something, and you always have it, right? Because it's in the command zone. But it seems like an interesting card. Again, I think there's cheaper ways in like commander to reanimate more efficiently, but Geth, this does definitely seem like an interesting card. Eviction Evangelist, I've seen this a couple times. Let's check this out. Vigilance, whenever it enters the battlefield, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So a little bit of removal if you can get corrupted. It is a cleric. I don't know if that makes it relevant at all. Probably not. Cleric decks like having smaller creatures. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure on this one. I think it's probably just a little too overcosted for any outside play, but this is probably one of our signpost uncommons for draft. And there she is, Nissa, in the pretty black and white art there. Again, so happy we got to pull her. Another Forest card I'm definitely excited to use in multiple decks in Commander. Card that I think will see a lot of play going forward. Slaughter Singer, again, a card I'm very excited to try to see if it works in these Go Wide Toxic decks. Sinew Dancer. And we have our new Sword of Forge and Frontier. A cycle that's been going on for a very long time. Finally gets the red and green sword. So the reference we use there is this first ability, equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and from green. So this is the red and green sword. Although this is colorless, you can play it in any deck. What the swords generally have done is they have 2 abilities, one that's kind of one color leaning and one that's kind of the other. So in this one, this equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. That's kind of the red side of the ability. And then you may play those cards, you may play an additional land this turn. That's the green side. So I really like this one because I think it really does pair red and green really well together in their abilities. I think this is great for a lot of decks because if you can pay off the exile and playing cards from exile, it's super great, right? But you also just get to play another land this turn. Foil Draw Spits, and then another Street Fighter card in Balden Century Herdmaster, kind of interesting. All of our Secret Lair Street Fighter cards have gotten reprinted with magic flavor, which is pretty cool. And there's Balden Century Herdmaster. I think that's the the Thousand Fists guy in Street Fighter, but you can correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong on that. There we go. Zofindrel, Hunger Dominus, one of the Dominus I'm very excited to use. Regular planes there. Zofindrel doubles power and toughness of all your creatures at the start of every combat. I think that's going to be very useful for green decks, big green decks in general, but also just big creature decks in kind of making the combat's even harder for your opponents. The cool part there is it almost seems like it's a second unnatural growth that you can have in your deck. And there we go, Mycosynth Gardens, my pick for the land that's probably going to have the most hype out of this set. For that last ability, X, tap it, it becomes copy of target non-token artifact you control with mana value X. It can copy a lot of things, and as long as that artifact isn't legendary, I feel like you're going to be able to do a lot of good with Mycosynth Gardens. Definitely excited to try that one out. And then we see a foil Monumental Corruption. I think we saw this one already this video. This is one of our exclusive set booster we did, Commander cards, but we just got that one in foil. So there you go. There's a multiple rare pack. Normally we get the chance of seeing more than this. So I feel like this one, so far, we haven't seen as many of the dual rare packs as you normally have a chance to see. But that's okay. Everything's about about ratios and that. Archfiend of the Dross, beautiful art there. I don't know that I really like the card for most formats, but I think the art is beautiful. Foil Forest there. But there is the chance, and that's why I think it makes it worth it, especially if you're buying things like a bundle or a box like this. You just have the chance of getting a few more things as well. Paladin of Predation, Noxious Assault. Very green uncommons there, which is pretty cool. Bladebelly Rat. And our rare is Zenith Chronicler. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. Very interesting rare there. I don't know that I love it, but I think it's an interesting concept. Free from the Flesh. And our rare, and our card from the list is a great one. Lolth, Spider Queen from Adventures in Forgotten Realms. A Planeswalker. One of the best Planeswalkers as far as Aristocrats decks go. In that whenever a creature dies, we put a counter on it. 0 to draw life, to draw a card and gain and lose a life. -3 makes 2 spiders with Menace and Reach, and then -8 to give yourself a pretty interesting emblem. I love Lolth. Lolth is a pretty cool Planeswalker. Like I said, especially for those aristocrat sacrifice decks, and it's cool to see Lolth on the list for this set. I'm sure it's probably been on the list for a little bit. You know, every set cards enter and exit from the list. But I think the cool part about opening set boosters, especially set booster boxes, is your chance at seeing what you get off the list. These random assortment of random reprints. And most of these list cards still hold some value compared to their original. It's not like if a $20 card gets reprinted on the list, it's not like it immediately becomes $5. Normally the list cards have a lot of good value, but love seeing Lolth. I feel like we've done pretty well on our list cards this time. All will be one. They said the name of the movie. Love that card. That card's going right into my Tyranids list because it combos very well with the card in there. Excited to see that card come out, and it pays off some counter strategies. All right. Quicksilver Fisher. Evolve Spinoderm. I've already seen this card getting some play in Arena. This card's kind of a mess, especially when you can start proliferating. This card becomes even better. Comes in with 4 oil counters. As long as it has 2 or fewer, it has trample. Otherwise, it has hexproof. So it has hexproof with 3 or more. So if you can proliferate enough to, beginning RP, you take a counter off of it. If you can proliferate and keep them on there, this thing could basically just have hexproof the entire time. And then it has no oil counters on it. You sacrifice it. A 4 mana 5/5 that if you can just proliferate, becomes a very tough thing to deal with. We see Titanic Growth there in foil and another Might token. Over halfway through the box so far. Like I said, I think we've done pretty well. We've got Nissa, which is great. That's a card I was very excited to get out of this set for a couple of the decks that I either have or I'm looking to brew in the near future. We've gotten some great cards off the list, which to me is kind of always the sign of where we get to have fun with set boosters. There's Atraxa. But I think also it's getting a borderless land in every pack. I'm glad that Wizards finally brought them back so that we can have one in every pack instead of it being a random, chance in each pack. I really think at this point, if we were going to have borderless lands, they should be well accessible They're not special like they used to be anymore. Why make them feel artificially special? That's just my opinion. You can let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Incubation Sac, Vat of Rebirth, Vat Emergence, Sin of Dancer, and our rare is Malira, the Living Cure. If you get one or more poison counters, instead you get one poison counter, and you can't gain additional poison counters this turn. This is great because it's going to stop a lot of those toxic strategies, especially on Brawl. And you can exile it, choose another creature or artifact. If it's put in the graveyard this turn, return it back to the battlefield, which is pretty cool. Orthodoxy Enforcer and another Goblin token. So I have a feeling Malira is going to see some good play in Brawl on Arena, because right now, of course, a lot of these poison strategies are getting played, and of course, right, there's a new standard deck running around with poison counters, and I have a feeling they're going to take over the landscape, at least for a little bit, so I'm sure Malira will be very useful for that. There we have Norn's Decree, right, that's signed. That's pretty cool. Okay, another mountain. This is my pick for like the most Silent Hill-esque art from this set. Crawling Chorus seems kind of interesting. Viral Spawning. Expand the Sphere seems kind of interesting. I'm not sure if this card's going to get much play, but I think it could be cool. Look at the top 6 cards. Put up to 2 lands from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest onto the bottom. If you put fewer than 2 lands this way, proliferate a number of times equal to the difference. I feel like that could be important for some decks. Skrulv's Hive, our new Bitter Blossom in white. It makes us a 1/1 Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1 instead of the original fairy that was created on Bitter Blossom. And then as long as your opponent has thermal poison counters, creatures control with Toxic have lifelink, which is very important, especially for those toxic decks where you're trying to go wide or do lots of good damage. I feel like a lifelink is the thing that is going to, in some ways, kind of outweigh the downside of you only being able to get one, poison counter with Toxic 1, whereas, Infect before, where you could get as many as you deal damage for it. Skrulv's Hive is one of my favorite cards I saw during spoiler season. I'm very excited to see it. We have Ichor Synthesizer. We have a foil Swamp with the spider there. Thrill of Possibility, seeing another reprint. I'm glad to see some cards just get really reprinted. Here we go. We see 2 for Mirrodin equipment here. Bladehold War Whip and the Hexgold Halberd. I have to say, some of them are kind of interesting. Some of them just seem a little bit too expensive to me for what you're getting out of them. Our rare Synthesis Pod, one of our set booster commander cards. This guy was kind of interesting. So for 3 in a Phyrexian blue, you get an artifact. And for 1 in a Phyrexian blue, you can exile a spell you control. So remember, anytime something refers to a spell refers to a card being cast that's on the stack. Target opponent reveals cards on the top of their library until they reveal a card with mana value equal to 1 plus the exiled spell's mana value. Exile that card, then that player shuffles. You may cast that card without playing its mana cost. Seems like a kind of interesting way to kind of stop your opponents from countering your spells or doing things with your spells. I'm intrigued to see if Synthesis Pod gets any player where people would use it. But we have another rare for Mirrodin equipment. This one gives the creature +2/+2 fly and haste. A great equipment. I'm intrigued if for 5 mana it's a little too expensive, but I'm sure it'll get good play. And we have another foil. Kethic, Crucible Goliath, rare. We get the manga art, the Ichor art, but this one is in foil, so a 3 rare pack. Beginning your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do reveal cards on the top until you reveal another non-legendary creature with less mana value, put it on the battlefield with the rest on the bottom. An interesting card. I'm kind of intrigued to see what people can make out of it. And then we get another Secret Lair card in Vikia, Scorching Stalwart. Kind of interesting. Has something you don't see very often, which is an untap ability. 4 red and untap it to discard a card. It deals damage equal to its power to any target. If excess damage was dealt this way, draw a card. We do not see a lot of creatures with untap abilities anymore, so that's pretty cool to see that. I don't remember which one Vikia is. But here we go, the Dross Pits, one of the new Sphere lands. The art card there. Get a pretty island. So again, cool to see these Secret Lair Street Fighter cards get reprinted in Magic art. We saw that a few sets ago in Capenna with the Stranger Things cards, so it's cool to see them get another reprint. Necrogen Rot Priest, one of my favorite cards I'm excited for. Doubling up the amount of poison counters your opponents get when you deal Toxic. It gets another one, so just adding additional one. That's going to be great. There's Chiromonix, the bundle promo for Phyrexia LB1, but here's the regular version in the set. New Rat Commander. Giving all your rats Toxic 1. And then whenever it enters Battlefield, you look at the top 5. You can reveal any number of rats and put them in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom. I have to admit, Rat Commanders have always been kind of interesting. I think I'm most partial to Ashcoat from Jumpstart 2022, but I think Rat Commanders are certainly interesting. There's Urbrask's Forge. It's an art card. You get another pretty Spider Swamp. Just a few packs left. Are we going to finish out our box with anything good? I guess that's the question. We've gotten a lot of really cool stuff so far. But let's get into it. There we are. Borderless Grass. Unstoppable Juggernaut. New Juggernaut Commander, and my pick for the most anime art in the set. Love the art of this card. And I'm intrigued to see if Graz sees some play in Commander, if people make this colorless token deck work. And there we are. Unctus Grand Metatect. This is a card that's been seeing some interest and love from some people. First off, it is an artifact creature, which is important. Other blue creatures you control have when this creature becomes tapped. Draw a card, then discard. Other artifact creatures get +1/+1. And then for a Phyrexian blue mana, until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a blue artifact creature. Blue artifact in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. So it can turn your artifacts into... You can turn your creatures into artifacts, which is important for some cards, especially in Commander, whether it's just getting the buff from Unctus or it's allowing other cards to give them bonuses or different things. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm interested to see what Unctus does in Commander. There we are, another Jace. See Jace there on the art card, another island. Phyrexian Atlas, a new 3-mana rock with add a mana of any color, and then if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, each opponent loses a life, which is kind of interesting. Lots of new Phyrexian creatures, which is great to see it actually become a type now and well supported. Fine Cultivator, Black Sun's Twilight, another one of our Twilight cycles. Tyrannix Atrocity, and an add card. Looks like just about 4 boosters left. I'm very much enjoying the set boosters this time around. I think set boosters are fun because you get to see a good mix of things, whether it's the art on our art cards, whether it's commons and uncommons, especially the chance at getting some foil commons and uncommons, although let's be honest, sometimes these days foils end up being a little bit too pringly. And again, the chance at multiple rares, like we saw 3 or 4 rare pack this time. Noxious Assault, pretty art there, one of my favorite of these kind of odd Phyrexian art cards. There's a Plains. All right, as we close up the box opening, would love to see, of course, Elesh Norn. Love to see another Planeswalker, or you know, that kind of thing. Necrogen Rot Priest. Hey, well, that was the other thing I was going to say, and this makes me very, very, very happy. We have a full art Mondrak Glory Dominus, the single card I am most excited for out of Phyrexia LB1. And man, I am excited to pull this. I can't remember whether it was this or the bundle opening I just did, or it was the bundle where I pulled a Mondrak, but now we have the borderless one, the one I was excited for. If one of our tokens would be create under your control, create twice that many of those tokens instead. Anointed Procession on a creature that can make itself indestructible, and there's also a Phyrexian Horror. So excited about that. And it's not too cheap as well at the moment. And we see All Will Be One, another multi-rare pack. Mythic. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, All Will Be One deals that much damage to target opponent, creature an opponent controls, or planeswalker an opponent controls. Very careful to not say any target, but first Obi-Wan is really cool. 2 mythics so far in this pack. This is a card I'm very excited for because it does go infinite with the Red Terror in my Tyranids deck. Expand the Sphere, and our list card is Metathran Elite Soldier when it's unblockable as long as it's enchanted. Man, we are winning. Oh, we have more left than I thought we did. We are winning so far at this set booster box. Lots of mythics, Nissa, Mondrak. I feel like we've seen lots of good things out of this box. Makes me very happy to have pre-ordered a box this time around. It's something I always like to do because, again, it gets you some of those commons and uncommons from the set, but it also just lets you get a chance. Cards have no idea what this is. Mere Convert, okay, and the Icar art. Another island. Another thing I don't mind about buying packs this time around is because those basic lands, full art basic lands, are in every pack. You know you're going to get a good amount out of it as far as value goes, so that's great. Our rare is Vran, Executioner Thane. Silver Fisher. Finally get to see the regular art. I feel like I've seen so much of the showcase of this art. I feel like I have yet to see the actual art for Quicksilver Fisher, but there it is. Phyrexian Drake. Whenever it enters the battlefield, draw a card and discard. Wouldn't be a bad ability, but for a creature that costs 5 mana, definitely a common, and I'm sure that will be a very playable limited common for a lot of decks. Surgical Bay. Jin-Gitaxias is this kind of little area of Phyrexia. Serum Snare, return target online permanent to its owner's hand if it has mana value 3 or less, proliferate. Always great to see a bounce spell. Bounce spells can be very great in one-on-one formats because they tend to create so much tempo by just bouncing back something back to somebody's hand, but they're also just good in a lot of formats. There it is. Koth fires a resistance. Koth gets a card, and he is back. In Phyrexia will be one. Fighting for the side of Mirrodin. Fighting to overthrow the Phyrexians that took over his homeland. Love to see him back. Cool part about Koth is all of his cards have had this theme about mountains. So it's +2, says you can search your library for a basic mountain, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. -3 deals damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains you control. And then -7 says whenever a mountain enters battlefield or you control, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target. That's an emblem you get to keep. So love the idea of Koth. I love that we get to see him come back and keep his theme of dealing with mountains. There we go. Roar of Resistance, one of the cards I'm so excited for out of the Commander decks. It's going to go into a lot of the token decks that I have. Another planes there. Let's rock through this one. Looks like now we have 3 packs left because one of us can actually count. Pay attention. Have Rebirth. Oh, sorry, that was on me. Sawblade Scamp. And we have a Kaito, Dancing Shadow, another Planeswalker. Love seeing the Planeswalkers out of this set. 10 of them. 5 completed and 5 normal. Kaito's, again, wins my art for probably my favorite of the manga arts, if you want to look those up. This is probably my single favorite of all the manga arts. I think it looks so pretty. And I'm really excited to see if Kaito can do anything in any formats. I think it's such an interesting card. Kaito, all of Kaito's Planeswalkers cards have been pretty interesting, so I'm excited to see if we can get Kaito some use anywhere. And our last is a foil Icar, Rhea Evor, Bane of Bladehold. This is a card I'm really excited for because I think a lot of people don't see the benefit of it yet. But as Battle Cries, whenever it attacks, all your other creatures get full simple. So it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal combat damage to 1 or more players, prevent that damage. The damage is prevented that way, create that many 1/1 might creature tokens. I think Rhea Evor can both be an interesting commander in its own right, or it can be an interesting support in these toxic decks, because let's say you have a big creature that only has toxic 1. Foregoing your damage this turn to get all of those tokens, which could potentially do damage next turn, I feel like it's just a really important it's just a really important ability. And I'm surprised that more people haven't really seen the benefit of it. Yes, it slows the game down a little bit, but I feel like it just ends up having a lot more upside. Nitrogen Communion there. Foil Planes this time. But again, very excited to use that one. I think it's a great commander and it's on the right. It's a tokens commander, right? So allows you to kind of make tokens depending on how big your things are. Another ossification there. Canker Bloom. We see a Blackcleave Cliffs, I believe our first Painland of the box, which is kind of odd. You'd think we would have seen more of them. But they are the land cycle this time, 5 of them in this set, and we should be getting 5 of them in, I'm hoping, in March of the Machines. They come in tap unless you control 2 or fewer other lands, and each of them have 2 colors. So excited to see another land cycle get reprinted, especially these ones, because they're going to be introduced into some other formats like Pioneer and Explorer. There we have Vivisection Evangelist, man. Such cool art. as well as, of course, being used in Standard. And we'll see if they get some Commander play. You know, the difference is with Brothers War and Phyrexia, or Dominator United, you know, they reprinted the Pain lands, which had already been printed in a lot of precons and things like that. Those were always great cards, but I'm sure to see if the fast lands see any Commander play. Necrotic Communion's a card I'm really excited for. Equipped creature, enchanted creature has Toxic 2, and then whenever that creature dies, return it back to the battlefield. I think this is going to be really interesting to help protect your commander and also give your commander a little bit of toxic or protect your creature you really care about. There's a normal Necrogen Rot Priest. And there we are, Azuri Stalker of Spheres. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you pay 3 if you do proliferate twice, and then whenever you proliferate, draw a card. Proliferating, of course, pays off a lot of different strategies, whether it's +1/+1 counters or other things. But Azuri draws a card every time you proliferate. So that's going to be kind of useful, I think, for some decks. Azuri, of course, has a commander card already, but I think some people will take advantage of the proliferating on the new one. And I could see that spawning some good things. There we are, Red Sun's Twilight, the pretty art of Urabrask there. Swamp, and we are in our last pack. Hashtag last pack magic, I hope. Planar Disruption, one of my other favorite new ones. Enchant artifact, creature, or planeswalker. It can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. It's pretty targeted, but I think if it gets put on the right thing, it can do a lot of good as far as shutting things down. Bone Picker Scourge. It's very interesting that we've pretty much only seen the same 5 commons. Archfiend of Dross, Borderless Ichor. What a pretty card. Love the art on that one. When it enters the battlefield, put 4 oil counters on it. During your upkeep, remove an oil from it. Then if it has no counters, you lose the game. And then whenever a creature opponent control dies, its controller loses 2 life. This is kind of interesting because it's kind of like I look at this kind of like Shieldred, where it's coming down and doing something to your opponents. Only, of course, the downside here is as soon as you get to 0 oil counters, you lose the game. But there's plenty of ways you can get around that, whether it's proliferating or other ways. Love seeing that. Is this going to be another multi-rare pack? It is. Monument to Perfection. 3 and tap, search your land for a basic sphere or locust land, reveal it and put it into your hand. Locust was a land type on some older lands from Phyrexia sets, and then for 3 mana, it becomes a 9/9 construct, loses all abilities, and gains indestructible and toxic 9. Activate only if there are 9 or more lands with different names among the basic sphere and locust lands you control. Again, that's our only payoff at the moment for the spheres lands. So I'm intrigued to see if we see some more payoffs for those. Or if that's, but for now, that's our only payoff. And I'll be honest, it's not the best of sphere payoffs. But again, I firmly believe we will see some more. Well, that, guys, is our set booster box opening. Let me know, what do you think about our pulls down in the comments? I feel like we got a lot of great things in this box, but I still think the best is Mondrag, Glory Dominus, a card that I'm very excited to use in Commander. A card that is going for a decent price right now. It's a very good card nonetheless, and a card I can't wait to brew more around. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and I will catch you guys next time.